Oh, lean organic chicken. Wow. That's like, what about, organic filtered cigarettes? So
Today on Nelda Live, we are speaking with Rip Esselstyn, who wants you to stop eating meat, dairy, and eggs. Rip's father, a surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, was one of the first doctors in the country to prove that a plant diet can prevent and reverse serious heart disease. When Rip became an Austin firefighter, he convinced his team to eat plant strong and challenged the idea that it's manly to eat meat. He shares with us his journey and how his choice of food can dramatically improve our health. Rip, I am so pleased to have you here today on Nelda Live. Welcome.
thank you, Nelda. As we were just communicating before we jumped in here, I have never met a Nelda before, and I don't know if you've ever met a Rip before, so this is pretty cool.
There we go. It is pretty cool. So, I don't know that I've met a former firefighter who had such a passion for plant-based diets. So nice to meet you for that reason too.
Yes. Well, there's more of us. There's more of us that are coming on board, and I'd like to think that I was, part of the reason why so many firefighters are now coming on board with the plant strong lifestyle.
Oh yeah, the other day I interviewed Tabitha Brown on my show, and she shared her journey to healing through plant-based diet. So I know you have really kind of a similar one, because there came a point in time in your life when you decided to do this. So you kind of refer to it as slaying dragons. So tell us what that means. What's your mission?
My mission it's just expanded since I first delved into this. So when I became a firefighter, I became a firefighter to fight fires and to help people and save lives. But what I didn't know is that so many of our calls would be 911 emergency calls for people that were having a medical emergency. So for people that were having a diabetic emergency, people that were having chest pains, difficulty breathing, heart attack, people that were morbidly obese that needed to get to the hospital, and we had to give them lifting assistance. As firefighters, we would help EMS. People, when they're just down and out, and we're asking for their medical history, and they share with us, I'm on all these different medications. I've had a brush across the bow with cancer. I've had 2 heart attacks. It's in your face. And our call volume as firefighters, I would say, is, and I'm not exaggerating here, 85% of our calls are medical calls.
Wow.
So we see up close and personal the devastation that's being caused by the fork, the spoon, and the knife. And so when I got out of firefighting, I was like, and our term for fighting fires when I was a firefighter was slaying dragons.
Okay.
But when I got out and I became 100% devoted my life to being a healthy eating advocate for this plant strong lifestyle, I now kind of look at what I'm doing as slaying a different type of dragon. And I refer to these dragons as, it's really a 5-headed chronic Western disease dragon that is singularly pulling this country into debtor's prison. I mean, we spend 20 cents out of every dollar that goes to healthcare costs. We're probably the sickest and most overweight country on the planet. Our annual healthcare bill is now approaching $3.5 trillion. It's absolutely ludicrous. That's 5 times our defense budget. And it's literally all because of what we're putting into our mouths. Mm-hmm. The processed refined foods, the animal products, the animal byproducts. These are weak, problematic, insidiously destructive foods that are not taking our health to the next level. So, and the 5 main diseases that are bringing us down are heart disease, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and obesity. And I refer to those 5 as the 5-headed chronic Western disease dragon that I am now trying to slay by educating people on what they can do just in their homes, in their kitchens, how to shop properly, just little things like that.
It's interesting. I just have interviewed Dr. Zach Bush, Dr. Stephen Gundry, and each of them talk about our explosion of chronic illness. And you actually have sort of a heritage in this, if you will, because you're really right. Like your father was famous for investigating the impact of our diet on heart disease in the late 80s. He was really a pioneer in this, though, really, because he actually got some kickback and some other things that he really kind of paved the way in a lot of ways. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, Nelda, he was a huge pioneer in this field. He really is one of the forefathers. Nathan Pritikin, Dean Ornish, all just followed the courage of their convictions as far as what they felt was the right thing to do. And my father started his research at the Cleveland Clinic, which is, probably the most world-renowned hospital in the world for cardiology. Mm-hmm. In fact, a little side note, Nelda, my great-grandfather was the founder of the Cleveland Clinic. So that's kind of nutty. So my father started his research at the Cleveland Clinic back in 1984. And within about 3 years of starting his research with some of the sickest patients that the cardiology department had turned down for another bypass, angioplasty, any kind of procedure because they were so sick. And they had no recourse but to do something as drastic and draconian as actually change what they put in their mouths. So instead of putting, steaks, they're putting sweet potatoes. Instead of doing bacon and eggs, they're doing oatmeal. Just, the pain, the horror, right? But he was able to take these, what the cardiology department referred to as the walking dead, and literally bring them back to life. They were alive 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later. And when they started to die, because most of these people were in their 60s and 70s when they started working with him, they were dying of other things besides heart disease and cancer, right? So that was really, really neat to see. But my father, he held their hand. He went over every morsel they ate every other week for the first 5 years because he was not going to let them fall through the cracks. And that's just, my father is so compassionate. He has so much love, but he's also very strict. He's a very stern man. And, when he tells you, listen, this is how we're going to play. We're going to play ball. And if you don't want to play ball, there's the door, right? And you get 3 strikes. But yeah, but it was life and death.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me because I just had an experience last year where I walked into a doctor's office, and when I walked out the door, I had 5 new prescriptions, maybe 8 new prescriptions. Yeah. Crazy. And that's how I began this process of evaluating all of this because, quite frankly, I was one of the ones who everybody's like, keto, keto, keto.
Yeah, keto. Wow. Run. But, but no, the sad thing is to me is that most of these physicians, like the physician that you saw, that you said you walked away with 5 or 8 different new prescriptions, they're really glorified pharmacists. And unfortunately, they're not doing anything to get to the root causation of what was causing whatever's going on with you. And I can guarantee you that if they had been educated at medical school on the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, that you would have gotten a different prescription. But that's not what they know.
Rip, do you know the number? Can you tell us how many doctors actually go through, what percentage go through some kind of health or?
Oh, well, I think that the answer is it's probably close to 0 doctors in medical school get any kind of nutritional education. And some medical schools require a couple hours, but it's a joke.
Yeah. Okay.
Potentially the most powerful medicine in their little medical bag is something that they don't even know anything about. And as I addressed in the very beginning, when you asked me about slaying dragons, and the most effective way for them to slay that type 2 diabetes dragon, to slay that heart disease dragon, stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's, obesity, is with a whole food, plant-based diet. And it is singularly, I believe, the silver bullet that can truly help us. I mean, you asked me about my mission, and I told you my mission is expanded. So in the beginning, it was just to educate and empower people around all the benefits of a plant-based diet, but that was primarily for health reasons. And now it goes so much deeper. I've been in the weeds with this now for almost 20 plus years. And you look right now at the climate emergency that we have going on right now, Nelda, and it's not a joke. Yeah. And, whether it's the World Bank or some other organizations that have done some extensive studies to show that, between the life cycle and the supply chain of animal agriculture, they are responsible, the 70 billion plus that we raise and then kill for, animal protein that we think we need, responsible for somewhere between, on the high end, 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and on the low end, about 16%, which is more than all forms of transportation combined. So, and then you look at what's going on with the rising of the seas, the increase in temperatures, deforestation of the Amazon and other parts of the world, dead zones in the oceans, the diversity of different life on our planet, the shrinking of the polar ice caps. This is frightful stuff, and so I'm trying to get people on board as best I can.
So let's talk about your Plant Strong, though. Let's say what's the difference between that and like veganism? I mean.
So veganism is more of an ideology where you don't want to do any harm. And so you're not consuming any kind of animal products whatsoever. So you're not wearing leather. You're not doing, you're not driving a car that has leather seats. You don't buy furniture, that you don't buy makeup that has done any animal testing. You don't eat animals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're eating in a way that makes you healthy. So you could be doing jelly beans and you could be doing Coca-Cola and French fries all day long, and it's just vegan junk food. So when I say Plant Strong, it's kind of a way of saying we're eating plants in their strongest, most whole form. So plants as close to grown as possible that are minimally processed, that contain all of the good and none of the bad. So we're now assured we're getting the biggest bang for our calorie buck. It's sweet potatoes, it's black beans, pinto beans, white beans, it's oat groats, it's steel cut oats, it's oatmeal, it's blueberries, raspberries, mangoes. Last night for dinner, for example, we got the whole family in the kitchen in 30 minutes. We cranked out the most amazing pumpkin curry dish you'd ever imagine, but it had bell peppers and onions and garlic and tofu and all kinds of amazing spices. And we had it on a bed of barley. And then we also had a nice little cashew sauce with just cashews and almond milk. But, there's, the list goes on and on and on. But Plant Strong, we're not doing a unhealthy vegan diet. As one firefighter said to me once, your diet, Rip, it's like a vegan diet with cojones.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
So let's talk about how you got here, though, because that's interesting to me, the journey of getting here. You were a triathlete, then you became the firefighter. Am I correct on that? Okay.
Right.
Okay. And so there were some things that you did, though. You became known as a firefighter for some challenge you did. So let's talk about that and how you got here.
Yeah. Well, so if you don't mind, I'll backtrack really quickly. So I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 1987. I then started a 10-year career as a professional triathlete. I knew athletics. I felt very, very comfortable in the athletic arena. That's when I started in earnest eating a whole food, plant strong diet, 1987. And I used that to fuel me as a world-class triathlete, one of the top 10 triathletes at the international distance in the United States. And then after 10 years, I decided it was time for me to put away the Speedo and the Schwinn bike and the Nike running shoes. And that's when I became a firefighter. Wow. for the city of Austin, Texas. And boy, you talk about a hostile environment to be eating, plant strong. Wow. But I held firm. They didn't bring me down. And we had a little bet at Fire Station 2. We were sitting out on the porch in 2003 to see who had the lowest cholesterol level, because we thought that would be a nice indication of who was potentially the healthiest person, because we all felt like we were the healthiest. And firefighters are notoriously competitive with each other. So we had the bet. The next day we drove down to a lab. We got tested. The results came back. And one of my firefighting brothers that I actually have been working with since 1997, so 6 years, his cholesterol came back and it was 344 milligrams per deciliter, which is off the charts high. And we quickly found out that his father had his first bypass at 51, and his grandfather and great-grandfather died before the age of 50. And so that was the kind of the impetus and the motivation that we needed as a firehouse at Fire Station 2 on the C shift to really embrace this lifestyle. And I challenged them to do it for 28 days. And then let's see what happens, And, this one firefighter with the high cholesterol, his cholesterol came down to 196 in less than a month. It was 26 days. He lost 14 pounds. Everybody lost weight. Everybody felt better. So that's how it all started.
It really is an interesting story. I can't believe how quickly his cholesterol dropped.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you basically take away all the bad and you're just putting in really all the protective and the life-enhancing substances that are in whole plant-based foods. And the reason why most doctors will say, oh, that's impossible, it won't happen, is they're not prescribing. They're saying, oh, do low-fat chicken. Oh, do low-fat dairy. Make sure you're putting olive oil all over everything. It's the Mediterranean, wonder food. And you're doing that, and you're still not taking away the cholesterol. You're not taking away the saturated fat. You're not taking away the building blocks, the animal protein that actually raise cholesterol. So they're not given the right prescription.
So is that when you became sort of an influencer in this? Is this when you started getting invitations to become an influencer in this realm?
So we started getting a lot of press as a firehouse in 2005, 2006. The New York Times did a front page article on us on the Metro section. The local Austin American Statesman, NPR did a national broadcast on a bunch of firefighters, eating plants. But then that's what led to then me getting solicited by a bunch of literary agents and publishing houses to write a book about the adventures and the escapades that we were having at Fire Station 2. And then that came out in 2009, February.
Did it surprise you when that happened?
I never saw it coming. And the last thing in the world that I thought that I would do is write a book, because I'm like, oh, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a life coach. I'm an ex-professional triathlete that's a firefighter. But you know what? What I've come to realize is that there's a lot of people that want to hear what a ex-athlete firefighter has to say on this subject.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing how life, ebbs and flows, right? And things happen and you have that opportunity to take it or not, right? And so I'm glad you did.
Well, it's so funny. I think about all the different twists and turns, the way life ebbs and flows, as you just said. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for every little decision that I've made along my life's journey that brought me to Fire Station 2 with that crew, with that opportunity, and then, how the doors have opened and the dots have connected since then. Yeah. It has given me, Nelda, such a purpose-driven life where I wake up every day with my fantastic team, my Engine 2 team, and we're just doing such great, wonderful work, and we love it.
Okay, Rip. So now let's just get down to some nitty gritty here. I have, all of us, well, maybe not you, come from a family of meat lovers. And so I want to just kind of go down some common food groups if we can, and give me your feedback on what you've found, what you've learned, and what you can prove too scientifically. If you'll indulge me in that, would that be all right?
I would love to indulge you with that. And first, let me say that I would say that almost everybody in America has grown up. Let's just say 98% of us have grown up as meat lovers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a tradition that many of us have been just brought up as meat lovers: bacon and eggs and steak and chicken and fish and pork and all of it. But the science is now telling us something entirely different. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, okay, we can continue driving around our gasoline, polluting, ridiculous, cars, or we can do something much more intelligent, and that's switch to electric. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an analogy that I'll make up front before you ask me. Like, we're going to a streamlined, much more efficient, smarter fuel source for our bodies. Mm-hmm. Right? We're not putting in a dirty fuel that's going to gunk up our engines prematurely and have us having heart disease at 50, having type 2 diabetes at 45, having now 75% of this country is now considered overweight or obese. Yeah. We got to start playing hardball, mm-hmm. And we got to realize that, hey, you know what? Oh my God. You're going to tear that steak or that hamburger away from my hands, not on my life. And we gotta look beyond, our own little love affair with animal products. But anyway, hit me.
Okay. All right. Here we go. What about beef? How do we get our B12?
So, that's a great question. And beef, your average piece of red meat is 70 milligrams of dietary cholesterol per 3 ounces. That's about the size of a deck of cards. Wow. So 70 milligrams. Your leanest piece of red meat is about 40% saturated fat. We don't need any saturated fat, but it's been actually shown the predominance of all the medical literature actually shows that it clogs arteries. It actually promotes insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes. It actually incites cancers and tumors. So, but as far as your B12 is concerned, B12 actually, it comes from the ground. It comes from the earth, microorganisms in the earth, in the soil. And the reason why you're not going to get it in plant foods these days, unless you have a garden in your backyard, is because everything is so clean. It's double washed. It's triple washed, right? So it's so almost sterile that the dirt, the microorganisms that typically would be on that, the onions, the mushrooms, the potatoes and whatnot are not there. So it is the one thing that we recommend that you supplement with if you're eating a all whole food plant-based diet. And the reality is you take one supplement once a week, like a 5,000 microgram tablet, it costs you $12 a year, mm-hmm. right? So it's super, super cheap. And the reason why, you get it from animals is because the animals are typically, their diets are either fortified with B12, so you get it in their muscle, or because they're eating the dirt and whatnot, they actually have it in their systems. But it does not originate in animals or plants. It originates in the soil.
What about lean organic chicken?
Oh, lean organic chicken. Wow. That's like, what about organic filtered cigarettes? So lean organic chicken. So your leanest piece of chicken, white chicken breast, is still 70 milligrams of cholesterol per 3 ounces, the same as that piece of beef. It's got 30% of the calories are coming from saturated fat. And let me just backtrack for a second and say, when you have muscle, whether it comes from something that paws a hoof, whether it's something that flaps a wing, whether it's, and this is probably coming up, whether it flaps a tail, wiggles a tail, you've got cholesterol, saturated fat, and animal protein. And these are I call them the trinity of the building blocks that promote chronic Western disease. So anyway, organic, lean chicken. Yeah, if you're trying to get heart healthy, it's not going to do it.
But we need our omega-3s, so what about salmon?
We do need our omega-3s. And where do fish get their omega-3s? They get it from the phytoplankton and the algae in the ocean. And we can do the same thing. We can get it from edamame, which is basically soybeans. We can get it from walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds. One of the best forms of omega-3s comes from ground flaxseed meal. 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed meal gives you your daily supply. Green leafies. So you can, it's a smarter way of doing it without exposing yourself, Nelda, to PCPs, dioxins, mercury that you're going to find in fish, in addition to cholesterol. Most fish has more cholesterol than red meat or chicken. And you're also, you can't get away from the saturated fat. Your leanest piece of of fish is about 20% saturated fat.
But we need to talk about the perfect food, eggs, right? 'Cause they're super healthy.
Well, it's amazing how many Americans have kind of have fallen for this marketing hype, and it's a lot of marketing hype. We like to say on the Engine 2 team, there's only 2 things wrong with an egg, the yolk and the white. The 1 egg yolk, Nelda, 1, is 212 milligrams of dietary cholesterol, which is the same as 2 Burger King Whoppers with cheese. And the egg white is a concentrated source of animal protein. And we'll get into this in a second, what's wrong with animal protein. But so, yeah, we don't need eggs, not for anything.
But we do need strong bones, so we need to drink our milk.
We do need strong bones. The best source of absorbable and retainable calcium, Nelda, actually doesn't come from milk. It actually comes from plants. Calcium, it's called calcium. It's not called calcium, right? Calcium's a mineral. It originates in the soil, in the ground. And so those green leafies, those beans that romp and play and grow in the ground, that's your best source of absorbable calcium. Tofu, wonderful source. And strong bones are really, they're a factor of vitamin D, calcium, and for all the women that are out there listening, weight-bearing exercise, right? Your bones, just like your muscles atrophy when you don't exercise, your bones are going to turn to styrofoam if you're not doing some form of weight-bearing exercise. And the good news here is it's never too late. It's never too late. But the best thing you can do is eat a plant-strong diet and avoid excessive amounts of caffeine, soda pop, and salt, and weight-bearing exercise for your bone health.
But, we're coming up on the holidays, and we have to have those charcuterie trays. So we need some cheese.
Well, Nelda, you're just, I love the way you're just setting me up. So, I like to say that cheese it's dairy crack. It is, and if you were to ask 100 people, if we went out right under the street and asked 100 people that were walking by, what food would you have the hardest time giving up if it was taken away from you? 99 out of 100 would say cheese. The other one would probably say chocolate. But it's cheese, and cheese, it's the number 1 source of saturated fat in the American diet. It is fat, it is salt. It's also loaded with something called casomorphines. It's a big fancy word for basically low levels of opiates that are naturally put there by the mother cow to ensure that the baby cow doesn't ever drift off too far away. And so you've got this triple whammy where you've got fat that hits the receptors in your brain. You've got the salt that hits the receptors in your brain. And then you got these low levels of opiates that hit your brain as well. And it's got that creamy mouthfeel and everything. And so, yes, people, but I like to say that we have to stop worshiping at the Church of Cheeses 7 days a week. We got to do it. We got to do it. We got to kick it out of our lives. because almost all of us are officially in an abusive relationship with cheese. So don't let the screen door hit you on the way out, cheese.
Okay, but our yogurt it has probiotics. Okay, Rip. I mean, really, come on.
Well, it does. It does have probiotics, but the best way for you to get a healthy microbiome, right, and feed those 37 to 40 trillion bacteria that reside in your gut, Nelda, it's not from doing a little yogurt. It's from basically putting into your mouth something called that's going to create prebiotics. Prebiotics are what create probiotics. And guess what is the best source of prebiotics?
What?
Fiber. Soluble and insoluble fiber that you're really only going to find in plant-strong foods, whole plant-strong foods. And the thing about yogurt, I look at yogurts as basically, they're almost like candy, right? Most of them have 26 grams of added sugar in them. The ones that are moving the best off the shelf these days are typically the Greek yogurts that have twice the amount of protein. And I do want to spend a second on this, Nelda, and just let your listeners know that 86% of the protein that's in dairy products comes from a type of protein called casein, casein. And it's a growth accelerator. It's put there by the mother cow to grow the baby cow as fast as possible. It was never intended for us as human beings. And when we're feeding this into our system, when we're doing, these Greek yogurts that have twice the amount of protein, what it's doing is it is feeding and fertilizing any dormant tumor and cancer cells that we have. Colin Campbell, who I worship, and he wrote the China study, and Whole, one of the most amazing biochemists on the planet, has said that the number one carcinogen in the American diet is casein that is found in dairy products. So, another great take home right there. So and the thing is, the reality is we're the only mammals that drink another mammal's milk after we've weaned ourselves off our mother's breast milk. And then we have the unmitigated audacity to not only drink whole milk, 2% milk, 1% milk, skim milk, but we also take that milk and we turn it into cheese, we turn it into yogurt, we turn it into sour cream, and all these different iterations that I refer to as milk is liquid meat, cheese is hardened meat, yogurt is runny meat, because it has the same DNA, cholesterol, saturated fat, problematic animal protein. It's just running through it all.
So that's a point where the audience needs to hit that 30-second repeat and hear all that again, right? To make it hit home.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Yep. Okay. Yep.
So is there any animal product that we need?
Let me think here first. Any animal product we need.
Didn't sound like it.
I'm gonna actually come out and say absolutely not. If you want to have an animal like a dog or a cat or something like that, or if you have a farm, like growing up, we had pigs, right? We had pigs. I had an old girlfriend that had 3 cows and she had chickens. And it's amazing how each one of them had their own special, unique personality, and they would, moo and give kisses, and but most of us don't have the opportunity to get to know a cow, right? Or get to know these little roosters or chickens. But I mean, it truly is. These are wonderful, living human creatures that, if you take the time, you'll really fall in love with them. And you don't want to eat them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk about our children, because I know we talk about adults eating Plant Strong, but tell us about kids eating Plant Strong.
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. So I have my own podcast. It's called the Plant Strong Podcast, and I just had some women on there yesterday who wrote a book called Nourish, and it's all about kind of families nourishing their kids with whole plant strong foods. And the reality is you can start literally at the age of 1.5, 2 on a whole food plant strong diet. And it's the strongest way to eat. It's the smartest way to eat. It's the best way to eat if you don't want to have any deficiencies. Right now, 1 out of 5 children is considered overweight or obese. Not even 1 out of 100 children is getting the adequate amount of daily fiber.
Wow.
And it's because most children are not eating whole plant-based foods. They're eating processed refined foods. They're eating animal products and animal byproducts. Benjamin Spock. I don't know if you ever heard of Dr. Benjamin Spock. One of the most famous doctors, passed away several years ago, but he wrote a book called Baby and Childcare. It is the 7th most sold book on the planet. And in his last edition, he talked about how all children would be much better served if, starting at the age of 2, they transitioned to a whole food, plant-based diet. Look at everything they need, nothing they don't need, and they will have, like, other than B12, right, or something like that, no deficiencies. I just can't say enough about, like, for example, my children. I have 3 kids. I know my throat.
Get some water.
You've had me just going nonstop here. But I've got 3 children. I've got a 6-year-old daughter. I've got an 11-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. They don't know any other way of life. They've been 100% plant strong their whole lives. Now, have they ever had, vegan ice cream or vegan cheese or a vegan burger like the Impossible Burger or anything like that, Beyond Meat Burger? Absolutely, yes. But they've never had a piece of meat. They've never been to McDonald's. They've never, and they love their lifestyle and they love eating this way. And they are athletic. They are brilliant. They are social. They are doing everything right. And my wife and I are so absolutely proud of them.
That is so great. So let's talk about that, because it has become a family affair for you, has it not, Rip? I mean, y'all had a 2-day kitchen rescue event. So tell us about that, because that's interesting how your family gets involved.
We did. We had a kitchen rescue event, and it was my mother, my father, my sister Jane, her husband Brian Hart, and then we had a couple select guests that came in as well. But it was a Friday evening and all day Saturday where we just wanted to teach people how to read labels, how to do a pantry makeover, eat this, not that. What's a great substitution for, butter and mashed potatoes? How do I make a pizza without cheese? And so it was really focused on the kitchen, the pantry, reading labels. And then we must have made 36 different delicious recipes, especially ahead of the holidays going into Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so we did a lot of dishes that carry over really well into the holidays. And so you can go into the holidays feeling like, oh my God, I got this. Not only do I got this, I'm going to serve all these fantastic dishes, this stuffing or this, sweet potato lasagna for my family, for, whoever happens to come to your house with COVID, right? Because we're probably going to be doing some social distancing and being careful with that. But you can hit it out of the park and feel like you're not at all deprived. In fact, you are like, I think it's important. I want your listeners to know, Nelda, this is a lifestyle of abundance. And, you may, as you being a meat eater and people thinking, oh my God, how am I going to live without my ribeye or my, my salmon or my bacon and eggs? The reality is your taste buds are going to adjust really, really quickly. And now you're going to be jonesing for that sweet potato lasagna, for that shepherd's pie with lentils instead of hamburger meat. And the thing, what's going to happen is you're going to start to feel your figure and your body and your if you happen to go in for a blood test, your cholesterol is going to look so sexy and your skin's going to start to radiate and shine, and you're going to have a little kick in your step, and you're going to wake up in the morning ready to tackle the day. And it's just the intangibles that happen when you really embrace this way of living are they're pronounced. And you're like, it's not just about you. It's about what you're doing for, Mother Earth. It's about what you're doing for all the other wonderful creatures that are out there. It's a lifestyle that, it's fun to get behind it.
So how do people start down this path then?
Well, to me, I've written 4 books. The first book is called The Engine 2 Diet. In it, I challenge people to do this for 28 days. And depending upon your personality and how you're hardwired, you might want to go all in. And if that's the case, I encourage you to go the firefighter route, which is where for 28 days you're abstaining from all the animal products, the animal byproducts, the processed refined foods, and the processed refined oils, and you're just eating whole plant-based foods. And we have all kinds of meal planner ideas for you and recipes to make it easy. If you're a little bit more shy and timid and you like to, test the waters out, we give you the Fire Cadet program, where week by week by week for 4 weeks, you wean yourself off what I call the contraband. So we start off week 1 and we're not doing any animal products, then no animal products and no dairy, and then no animal products, no dairy, and no processed refined foods and oils. Now, if you want to do a shorter time frame where we're getting insane results, you can do the 7-day rescue challenge. It's a book that I came out with just about 3 years ago, and it's based upon over 2,000 data points that I've collected over the last 10 years, working with Whole Foods sickest team members, and what can happen in just 7 days when you really commit to this lifestyle. You go all in. This is the varsity program. So anyway, those are 3 ways to start. The firefighter for 28, the fire cadet for 28 days, or you just do the 7-day rescue. And the reason I call it rescue is because you are rescuing yourself from whatever's going on with you. And it's time for you to take your health in your own hands. As you just said, you started this interview. Your doctor is not going to solve your issues, not with a bunch of pills, right? You got to get back to the basics, back into that kitchen, eating whole, nutritious, plant-strong foods. You don't want to mess with the keto program. That's a physiologic parlor trick where you're putting your body into starvation mode. You're removing all of the complex carbohydrates that are our body's number one fuel source. You're loading up on fat. Now, that's just not an intelligent way to do anything long term, right? It had its purpose when we went without food for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where you basically shifted into, instead of burning carbohydrates, we're now burning ketones. Your hunger drive goes down to like nothing, but you feel good. You lose weight because you're not taking in any of these carbohydrates that are also, you're storing water. But again, you're losing water weight. It's a physiologic parlor trick, and it's not something that anybody should do long term. And there's no longitudinal studies that show that a keto diet can truly help with reversing heart disease, reversing diabetes, or any of these things. And with a whole food plant-based diet, it has been shown again and again and again, and it goes back, in some cases with diabetes, back to 1908. So, wow. Yeah.
So now, just because you mentioned that, how long have the studies gone on now that really confirm scientifically what you've learned with Plant Strong?
Well, so like, for example, with Dean Ornish and my father with heart disease, those go back now with Dean Ornish, I think it's 1981. With my father, 1987. My father's been published in 7 different medical literatures. So with and even before those guys, you had Nathan Pritikin that in the 70s was showing some of this stuff. Again, with diabetes, it goes back to the early 1900s. You look at Dean Ornish has also done studies to show that you can not only halt, but you can also, in many cases, reverse in men prostate cancer, and by association breast cancer. He has also shown that we can turn off cancer promoting genes and turn on cancer preventing genes within 3 months of eating a whole food plant-based diet. Whole food plant-based diet is the only way of eating that has been shown, Nelda, to actually lengthen what are called the telomeres. These are the things at the end of our chromosomes that are responsible for actually lengthening our lifespan. It's the only way of eating that's been shown to do that. So, and the science is just continually reaffirming everything that's come out. So it's kind of like with smoking. How many studies had to come out before the American public was kind of like, you know what, I guess smoking isn't good for me? It was over 7,000. It's over 7,000 studies before the medical community also got behind it.
Wow.
It's the same thing with eating this way. And it took almost 30 years with smoking, right? So it's the same thing with this way.
Well, all right, people, are we listening? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we have some audience questions for you. So grab some water. Here we go. Are you ready for some more?
Okay. Bring it on, audience.
Number one is, as you've researched this topic over the years, what have you learned that's most surprised you?
I think what surprised me the most is how my passion and my enthusiasm for this does nothing but increase. It doesn't wane. It just builds and builds and builds. And as I opened up to you, Nelda, when I started this literally to help me as a triathlete for performance reasons. So I did this for performance reasons because the number one triathlete on the planet at the time was following a plant-based diet. And then it just so happened that really dovetailed perfectly with my father's research that was, ongoing at the Cleveland Clinic. And then I'm in it for health. So I'm in it for performance. I'm in it for health. And then the rabbit hole just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And now, you know what? Wow. We've got, we're finding out that animal agriculture is the number one contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions. And so, okay, well, that's another like feather in the cap for eating this way. And then, of course, sustainability reasons. This is the most sustainable way to eat. For your audience, when you're eating meat, it requires 10 times more water, 10 times more resources, 10 times more land than plant-based products. And then, of course, you have, and now that I have kids and they're 6, they're 11 and 13. And it wasn't until they really came into the picture and we started reading to them all these wonderful books, like Charlotte's Web and, the Big Red Barn and they're like, why do people eat these animals? It makes no sense. It's not nice to eat animals. And you start looking around, and I told you about my girlfriend that had the cows and the chickens, and all of a sudden it's like, why do I want to eat these beautiful, beautiful creatures that we share, Mother Earth with? So what I have been surprised with is how the reasons for eating this way keep expanding, and my resolve gets greater and greater. I'll throw in a great quote, and that is Mahatma Gandhi said a long time ago that true happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in alignment. And what I've discovered now is that eating this way, I've put a stake in the ground, and the ripple effect is profound and far-reaching. And I wish people would know that, what you eat, the impact goes way beyond just, what's going into your body. There's a lot more to it than that.
Lovely answer. All right. So question number 2, let's talk a bit about life after you retired from firefighting. You're now a real entrepreneur and, I've seen your engine too. Okay. At Whole Foods. All right. So let's talk about that. What experience led you? They're asking to your Engine 2 products.
Yeah. Well, so that's really wild. It's wild what's happened to me over the last decade. So John Mackey, who's the CEO of Whole Foods, he also, in about 2003, for ethical reasons, started eating a vegan diet.
Hmm.
But more and more, he wanted to start eating this way for health reasons as well. And he wanted to also impart to the whole food culture this kind of uh, this tangible feeling of health and wellness. And he wanted to create this throughout his whole company. And so he brought me on board in 2009 to be a healthy eating ambassador and to go around and to talk to team members, 100,000 team members, to talk to the millions of customers that are at Whole Foods, to throw these healthy eating medical immersion programs where we teach Whole Foods unhealthiest team members how to embrace this lifestyle. And Whole Foods, this was all on Whole Foods dime. And then also lastly, we created a line of Engine 2 products that really embraced all the tenets that I espouse in my books. Low sodium, low fat, 100% whole grain, 100% plant-based. And so Whole Foods created, with my help, this line of Engine 2 Plant Strong products. And it was incredible. I mean, at one point, we had close to 50 different products on the shelves, from hummuses to pasta sauces to raviolis, pizza crusts, cereals, granolas. And what has happened, with the Amazon acquisition and some other things is Whole Foods has decided to turn that brand back over to me. And so I now have the gift to now take this outside of Whole Foods. And so what I'm doing is I'm pivoting, because the time couldn't be better. And we're actually transitioning it from Engine 2 to Plant Strong. So that's going to be the lead. Wow. The product will be called Plant Strong now. We're going to be going into other retailers besides Whole Foods. And we also have an online presence. And actually, if people, they can go to plantstrongfoods.com, and we've got some pizza crust kits there. We've got the Engine 2 cereals. We have the granolas. We're going to be rolling out all new products here over the next 6 months. And at the retail level, we're really focusing in on broths, chilies, and stews. So there you go.
That's an exciting thing.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Well, congratulations on that. So what have you found to be the most challenging part of starting a new healthy brand like that? What's the most challenging part?
I can tell you what's been the easiest part. The easiest part has been building a rock star team, right? That are mission aligned and super focused and have the same passion that I do towards this lifestyle. So that's been the easiest and the funnest thing. The hardest thing, food is hard, right? I mean, I'm just going to cut to the chase. Food is hard. I mean, especially at the retail level, it is brutal. Everybody's got their hand out wanting a piece of the pie. You got to deal with co-manufacturers and get the formulas just right. You got to deal with distributors. You got to deal with margins and markups. And every day there's another fire. There's another headache. There's something that comes your way, especially during the times of COVID.
Yeah.
There's everybody's a little bit strained. But at the same time, I think it's one of the reasons why everybody doesn't do it. It's so hard that that I honestly, so with Whole Foods, it was more of a licensing agreement, and I wasn't nearly as into the weeds. I got to use the Whole Foods just machine to help with these products, all the Whole Foods lawyers and all the Whole Foods, exclusive brands team. But now I got to figure out all that myself and with the team. So it is absolutely brutal, but we're going forward with it.
I'm excited to hear that. Well, I thank you so much for being here. I want to make sure the audience knows where to find you, what's upcoming. Apparently, this is upcoming. So tell us more and where we can find you.
Thanks. So we're going to be launching a national free 7-day challenge, Plant Strong Challenge. We'll be announcing it in all of our channels here soon, but you can go to plantstrong.com to find out about our events and our food products and the podcast, and we have a meal planner, and we also have online coaching. So all of our different resources and our tools to make Plant Strong living easier. You can go to plantstrongfoods.com if you want to order any of the products. On Instagram, you can find me at Rip Esselstyn.
Okay.
You can also go to @Engine2Diet or @PlantStrong. Yeah, those are some things.
Well, you know what? It has just been my pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful to you for what you do and that you care about what other people are eating. And thank you for that. And just for being out there and sharing and, for jumping off into all this back years ago when the opportunity came.
Well, that's very gracious of you. Thank you, Nelda, so much.
Oh yeah,
for having me. It's really been it's been a joy.
Well, thank you. All right, what a journey, guys! Follow Rip. You'll want to, and hopefully we'll have you back sometime when we can discuss how all this came out. Okay.
Love it. I'd love that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rip. Look, we have lots of great interviews on Nelda Live, so hit like and subscribe. There's much more to come.